It wasn't just a test. It was harsh, deliberate, and planned with precision. Inside the quiet halls of a grand mansion, the polished marble floors reflected the glow of a crystal chandelier, while the steady ticking of an old clock filled the air. In the master's study, a large safe stood wide open. Inside, piles of cash were neatly stacked, shining alongside glittering gold chains and diamonds. The man who owned it all, a millionaire 2 times over, knew exactly when his housemaid would walk through that room. He had studied her routine down to the very minute. Hidden just past the archway, he waited silently, not out of anger, but with a strange sense of expectation. When she finally entered and stopped at the sight of the open safe, he could not have predicted what would happen next. Within moments, everything he thought he knew was turned upside down. What unfolded not only surprised him, it touched his soul and awakened a part of his heart he thought was long gone. If you believe in second chances, in the quiet strength of compassion, and in the kind of character that can truly transform lives, then take a moment right now. Like this video, subscribe to Truss and share this story with others. Let it be known that honesty still lives, even when no one is watching. The maid's name was Camilla, 32 years old. She was slender, quiet, and carried in her deep brown eyes the kind of untold stories only hardship can create. For just over 7 months, she had been employed at the Ashworth estate. Camilla was a widow, raising 2 young daughters while also caring for her mother who was fighting cancer. She was the kind of person who bore her struggles in silence, never allowing her pain to slow her down. Each day she arrived before the first light of morning, tied her dark hair neatly into a bun, slipped into her plain uniform and began her work without hesitation. To most people in the mansion, she blended into the background, serving meals, carrying trays, and cleaning rooms without ever being noticed. But for Alexander Ashworth, the wealthy yet withdrawn man who had inherited great fortune but never found true peace, Camilla was different. She had become a quiet puzzle he couldn't ignore. Alexander's life had been shaped by battles to protect his wealth and reputation. Over the years, people had stolen from him, betrayed him, and taken advantage of his trust. His ex-wife had already taken a fortune during the divorce. Former employees had drained money behind his back. Even friends he once trusted had turned into opportunists. Because of this, Alexander built strong barriers, steel ones to guard his wealth and invisible ones to protect his heart. Then came Camilla. From the very beginning, she was different. She never tried to impress him with compliments. She didn't pry into his life. She finished her duties quickly and never stayed in a room longer than necessary. Every background check showed the same thing. Camilla's record was spotless, with nothing suspicious at all. And strangely, that honesty unsettled Alexander. To him, it almost felt dangerous, as if no one could truly be that clean. That's when he came up with the idea of a test. One Wednesday morning, right before Camilla was due to clean the study, Alexander ordered that the safe be left wide open. He had also told his security team to switch off the hallway cameras for a short time. No one would witness what happened, except him. This was his chance to discover how Camilla would react when temptation was placed directly in front of her. Would she hesitate? Would she give in? Or was Camilla truly as steady as she seemed? At exactly 8:42 a.m., she stepped into the study. At first, she didn't notice the safe. It wasn't until a ray of sunlight struck the steel door, sending a sharp glare across the polished floor, that her eyes locked onto it. She froze mid-step. The duster stayed still in her gloved hand. Her gaze shifted from the open safe to the hallway. Empty. Silence surrounded her. She drew in a quick breath, her chest tight, and for several seconds she didn't move at all. It was as if she couldn't decide whether what she was seeing was real. From his hidden spot, Alexander's pulse raced. He watched every movement as she slowly edged closer, each step measured, uncertain. Her hand hovered near the stacks of cash but never touched them. Instead, Camilla pulled the cleaning cloth from her apron and gently began wiping the edges of the safe, careful not to disturb a single bundle resting inside. She didn't reach for the money. She didn't let her eyes linger on the stacks as if weighing the value. Instead, she wiped the dust from the steel surface with the same steady care she gave every other corner of the mansion. And then, something, neither planned nor predictable, took place. Camilla slipped a hand into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph, its edges bent from age. She paused, glancing once toward the hallway, making sure she was alone, and then set the picture gently on the shelf beside the bundles of cash. The photo showed two young girls, about 7 and 5, their bright smiles captured as they stood in front of a hospital bed. Lying there was an older woman, her face pale but marked with a faint, loving smile. Camilla's lips moved, whispering words so quiet that even Alexander, hidden only feet away, could not make them out. Moments later, she picked the picture back up, pressed a soft kiss against it, and slid it safely into her pocket. Then she closed the safe door with care. In the shadows, Alexander drew back, stunned. This was not what he had imagined. He had expected a quick reach, a stolen bill, or at least a flicker of hesitation. But none of that came. What Alexander witnessed wasn't greed. It was respect, quiet sorrow, and love held back with strength. Before Camilla could notice the tears gathering in his eyes, he turned away and left the room. That night, Alexander found no rest. Sleep escaped him as his mind circled back again and again to what he had seen. The photograph, the gentle kiss, the untouched safe. The memory weighed heavily on him, pressing down like a truth he had avoided for far too long. It was clear, now that the test no longer mattered. This was about her, about Camilla, about the kind of character he had convinced himself didn't exist in people anymore. For years, he had allowed betrayal and loss to harden him, judging everyone by the wounds others had left behind. And in doing so, he had nearly overlooked the rare goodness quietly working in his own home. The next morning, when Camilla arrived for her duties, she noticed an envelope resting on the kitchen counter. Her name was written across it in Alexander's careful, bold handwriting. Inside was a short, handwritten message. Integrity has no price, and neither does peace. You've given me both. Your daughters and your mother deserve a future without fear. Please accept what's enclosed, not as a reward, but as a thank you. Inside the envelope was a signed check, left blank, for her to fill. Camilla sank into the nearest chair, her breath shaky, eyes filling with tears. Her hands trembled as she pressed the letter to her chest. For the first time in years, the heavy weight she carried seemed to ease. Her mother's treatment, her daughter's school fees, the constant worry of eviction, all of it could finally be lifted. And not because she asked, begged, or took what wasn't hers, but because she had chosen honesty when no one was watching. That weekend, Alexander visited her home for the very first time, not as her employer, but as a friend. He sat at her small wooden table, laughed and played with her daughters, and brought along documents that would help her purchase a new home in a safer neighborhood. He also offered her a new role, head of domestic operations, with full benefits and a flexible schedule so she could continue caring for her family. But more than the position, more than the money, he gave her something she had never expected from a man like him. Trust. Because sometimes the greatest tests aren't proven by applause or recognition, but in the quiet choices made when no one else is there to see. And sometimes, true wealth isn't measured by the size of a safe, but by living with honesty and truth. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to Tale Truss, where we bring you real emotional stories that show the quiet strength of humanity. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you do if no one was watching?